Welcome back. You're still watching Citizen Extra, the Friday edition with me, Freddie Ndimuli. Let's now link up with our reporter all the way in Dubai, Sam Gituku, who's been following up the printing of the presidential ballot papers. Sam, I do understand it's still morning there, so good morning, Sam. How far has the job gone, and what else can you tell us from there? When do you expect the presidential ballot papers?
Well, good morning to you, Fred. As we had been told yesterday by the Al Ghurair farm officials, is that the printing of the ballot papers was to be concluded last night. And so today we have not been in a position to go and check that, because today apparently it is a holiday, and so the administrative staff is not available for that. But what is happening is that the other production staff, which is about 390 persons who work at the Al Ghurair printing and publishing farm, proceeding on with the work, because after the printing is done, then the other processes, very important processes of getting to bind what has been printed, getting to serialize. There's something that they call the taper, the taper numbering, where you have several digits, a series of digits being marked on the papers with some security features, so as to ensure that they are not cannot be replicated. So that is the process that has been ongoing. After the binding, they'll have then to trim the ballot papers, how they print it. They print on a large sheet of paper, and then they bind it, and then they have to split it into the booklets that are necessary. Of course, each booklet carrying about 50 ballot papers. And so that is the process that is supposed to be ongoing. And then after that, they are supposed to package the ballot booklets into groups of 700, that is about 14 booklets, or at most 15 of them, so as to provide for the extra ballot papers for the sense of the contingency plan. And so once that is done, then they'll have them into pallets, or rather into bunches of what will be provided to each and every of the polling stations. But of course, Fred, as we indicated in our story last night, is that the ballot boxes, the ballot papers are packaged specific to the constituencies that they'll be being transported to when it comes to the time for the election. And so basically the process is almost complete in terms of preparation of those ballot papers, because on Saturday, which is tomorrow, we understand that the first batch of papers that should be ferried to Nairobi.
Oh, some. So you're saying that the first batch of presidential ballot papers will be transported from Dubai as early as tomorrow?
Well, yes. I'm not sure you can hear me.
We can hear you. Yes.
On my side.
Yes, Sam Gituku there. We do apologize for that. We are trying to get him on Skype. And but yes, the presidential ballot papers are being printed. The job is as good as done, and as Sam said there, the first batch of presidential ballot papers will be flown out of Dubai as early as tomorrow. We'll be trying to link up with Sam Gituku later on for another update. Of course, even as we continue looking at other things as well. Thank you, Sam, for that update, and I hope that we'll get a better connection in about an hour or so. Back in studio, we're still with Mark Bichachi, Nakia J. White, Onchario Yeyo, and I'll be introducing my other panelists in a short while. But Mark, there's something you wanted to say with regard to preparedness and the last 10 days of the in the rundown to the election date.
I just want to remind the Kenyan political class how Theresa May lost her majority in the British houses. And how she lost it was very simple. It was how she responded to disasters and the terror attacks in the UK at the time they happened. And that brings me to the story of the lady who lost her son when the son fell through the bus. It is sad that no political party has actually taken that as a critical matter to bring it up for political debate and give a promise as to how this will be dealt with once they return to power or they gain power. Now here's the thing. For as long as NASA keeps following Jubilee, Jubilee is winning. And why is Jubilee winning? Because Jubilee is able to go to these different places and say this is what we have done. What NASA has failed to do is give the imagination of what they'll be able to do. What is the alternative? And for as long as none of these political classes is dealing with the issue of a child falling down through a bus and being able to say, this is what we are doing right now since you are in government, then what they're doing is they're missing the point of the last 10 days, which is to look for every opportunity to have an issue to rally emotions around. That is what should be happening. It is not happening. It is sad for our nation, and what we need to do is return to that place where the political class is able to address the emotional issues that arise day by day as the country goes on.
Mark, are you saying that we should be getting emotional 10 days to the elections?
I'm saying that we should be getting the right emotions. The problem is the emotions that are there right now is us versus them. The emotions that we should be getting now are the emotions of Kenyans imagining a better Kenya. That is where we need to be, and that's where Trump won it, because he was able to drive that emotion of a greater America. Brexit happened because there was a greater pie for the British people. That is what I'm talking about.
Yes, and Professor Jakoya earlier today had mentioned the issue of using media advertising to try and probably get people's emotions in the right perspective. Is that what you're suggesting?
Exactly, except, and this has happened before in Kenya. I don't know whether you remember the Domo advertisements, Fanya Kazi, Wacha Domo. That advertisement was so effective in the defeat of ODM in 2007, as contentious as it may have been. And what we've not been able to do is we've not been able to capture that same emotion, that same importance to this particular election like we did in these two previous elections. There's a lot of lethargy this far in the game, and the politicians need to move very fast in getting the emotions of the people as high as possible.
Okay, thank you. Mark Bichachi, will have to let you go and continue this discussion with my other panelists. Sherfo Okore also joins us. I hope I pronounced that name correctly.
You tried.
Yes, I tried.
You tried. You
okay,
tried.
I kindly ask you advise us on the proper pronunciation. Good morning, Nakaribu Sana.
Thank you.
We're discussing, of course, the last 10 days to the elections and what we should be seeing vis-a-vis what we are seeing. Do you think what we are seeing right now with the erratic movement of politicians trying to make as many stops, many political rallies as possible, do you think that is the best way to go about it?
I think yes or no. And yes and no as well at the same time. My reasoning is simple. Kenyan people for the longest time have been used, abused, discarded, and then picked up again on the 5th year of the election. So you'll find a politician coming on board, starting to talk about your issues, starting to talk about your plight at the very last end of the election when they're seeking your vote, which doesn't work. For them, it may seem like it's helping and it's working and it's trying to achieve something. It does not really work for them. Because the new voter right now, and going with the statistics of the IEBC, we have a new voter out there that is one major thing about them is they are very, very cautious about what politicians are saying. They are seeking answers, they are seeking redress, and they are seeking somebody who's speaking to their issues and someone who understands what their issues are. So the politicians running around dancing on podiums and giving t-shirts, that's well and good, because I work with them every day and they will say, that is good, we will take the t-shirts, we will dance with them. We'll go back home and then we'll ask ourselves, how many times have we had this story? How many times have we played this film again? So, you know, at the end of the day, it's about a leader who understands the importance of changing on the tactic and the strategy around their campaigns. Because the voter is young, relatively young, and this voter is not the old type of voter who will be stuck in the element of, you are my person, so we speak your language and we have the same names at the end of, you know.
When you talk about tactics, what tactics should they be employing, especially now 10 days to the elections? They're seeing the same tactic that was employed months ago, years ago, political rallies, dancing, giving out t-shirts and whatnot, and cutting up banners. Is that the tactic they should be employing right now?
That is the tactic they know how to employ, because that's the tactic that has worked for so many people before them. But right now that's not what is working, rather. There are simple things that they can do to show people that they mean what they say, and what they say is bond to them. One of those things is literally showing up for a debate. I don't know how many times we need to stress this up, because people need to hear that you know what our problem is. You cannot talk about our problems in a campaign or in a rally of 10,000 people and say, I understand women have a problem, I am going to talk about the truth agenda. In a crowd of 20,000 people, it doesn't work. Secondly, they need to personalize their messaging. You cannot go out and tell people, come and vote for me because I am the greatest candidate, because my candidate is offering you this and that. Some of these people are so disconnected to the issues of Kenyans. So all these things become empty words. Another thing that for me works so well and that we're seeing with very many new candidates who are aspiring for elected positions is they're doing a lot of door-to-door, which is working. And the reception about and around door-to-door has been great, because most of them, since I work with a couple of them, has been people have accepted me in their space. And they have told me, thank you for not buying me a t-shirt. Thank you for not giving me 200 shillings. Thank you for respecting my time and sitting down and talking with me. How many of these mainstream political aspirants or candidates are willing to do that?
Wow.
Do they even find it necessary?
And I think we are probably the mistake we're making is that we are over-concentrating on the presidential candidates.
Exactly.
And yet there are so many other races, 47 races for governors alone. And probably, have you seen, now that you say you work with politicians, have you seen this different new kind of tactic being employed by candidates at different levels?
Absolutely. I have so many. I don't even know if I have enough time to list them. There is a young lady right now in Kileleshwa called Samantha Maina, who's walking in Waruku every other day. She's walking in Kileleshwa ward. She's talking to her electorate. She's telling them, I do not have the resources my competitors have. I do not have the big names they have. I do not have that clout. What I have is the urge to serve you. What I have is the fact that I am tired of seeing the same old story play out and we expect a different result. There is another one in Mwatate called Dixon Mwambari. He's doing the same. There is Chris Chavera in South B right now doing the same. There is another one in Kahawa Wendani, a young aspirant, 19-year-old Penina Wandia, doing the same. There is another one.
Personalizing the message.
It's personalizing the message and demonstrating a new way of politicking, because I think we are so stuck on, let's just go the old regime way, where we will all just come together, wear the same branded t-shirt, jump on a wagon and just celebrate.
And dance.
Exactly. Which misses the point, because you have to realize that the electorate has changed.
Yes.
You know,
and
there's not the same people.
10 days to the election, the tactics have to change. We don't have to keep dancing to the same tune.
Yes.
And before we come to Joy Mdivo, my latest panelist, Joy, good morning. I've seen you. Karibu sana.
Morning, Fred.
I'll be joining you in a while. Let's link up with Francis Gashuri. All the way at the Bomas of Kenya, we were expecting IEBC chairperson Afula Chebukati to make an address to address the nation on the status of preparedness. Francis Gashuri is on that story. He now joins us for an update. A very good morning to you, Francis. Has it happened yet?
Very good morning to you, Fred Indimuli. A very chilly morning here at the Bomas of Kenya, the National Tallying Center, where IEBC team has set up. This is where basically it will be like the port where the results from the 290 constituencies will be taken care of, and eventually this is where the declaration will be made on who will be the winner in the presidential race 2017. And so basically what the IEBC chairman wants to do today is to demonstrate the state of preparedness by the Electoral Commission, be able to respond to all the questions related to the preparations for the general election that is 10 days away. And what is also happening here, Freddy, is that there will be a simulation, a demonstration on the electoral process, how people will be able to turn out in the polling stations, how they will be identified, how they will be voting, and basically answer all the questions that relate to the electoral process. And there are various observers who have been invited to this news conference, so it will also be an opportunity for them to ask questions insofar as the voter identification, results transmission, and all matters relating to the general election that is 10 days away. And quickly before the chairman comes, please allow me to introduce to you Joyce Ekwam. She's the manager of voter education. Joyce, very quickly tell us what can we expect today? And I'm seeing a polling booth, ballot boxes, demonstrations. Basically, what are you likely to do, going to do today before the chairman addresses the country on the preparations?
Thank you very much. Apart from what the chairman will be addressing the nation towards preparedness to the general election, we are also going to simulate the voting process, and that's why the ballot boxes are here with us. We would want the participants of this sitting to have a feel of how the voting process will be like, starting from voter identification and the number of ballot boxes, the number of elected positions we have in the general elections, and the color of the ballot papers as well, and also how to mark a ballot paper correctly and how to cast that ballot paper in the correct ballot box. So we would want to have Kenyans who are here this morning to have a feel of how the real voting process will be like on the 8th of August 2017.
In 2013 there were 108,000 spoiled ballots. So how has IEBC prepared to take care of this? Because in an election as closely contested as the 2017 as it is expected or as it is being projected, 108,000 votes are just too many to be spoiled.
Yes, there are too many to be spoiled, and no vote should actually be rejected for that matter. And IEBC has put mechanisms in place to ensure that the Kenyan voter is prepared to cast their vote correctly. And we have actually rolled out very robust voter education in the field through the voter education voter educators that are doing our work in the wards, in the 1450 wards in the country. We are also ensuring that there is somebody, or there will be someone who will be directing and guiding a voter as they will be casting their vote on that particular day, so that we don't have any stray ballot, for that matter, going to any wrong ballot box.
Talking about stray ballots and spoiled ballots, there's a lot of propaganda out there that if you want candidate A, weka tick hapo kwake. If you don't want the others, weka XXXX.
There are so many marks that are allowed by law on how a voter is supposed to cast their vote. One of them is a tick. The other one is an X. You can also put a small line. You can also put a dot. You can also use a thumbprint for those who are unable to write nor read. And therefore, you're supposed to use only one mark at a time. If it is a tick, please use a tick on your ballot paper. Yes.
So it's not tick and kama utaki mwingine unaweka X.
No. There's a lot of propaganda going out there. If you don't want me, for example, you put an X and leave the rest like that. By that way, you'll have voted in for that person. And therefore, we advocate for the voter to use only one mark at a time. If it's an X, please use an X. If it is a tick, please use a tick.
Lastly, just before I let you go, the question of rigging. The allegations of rigging have been out there, in the course of this campaign period. Issues of ballot stuffing, such questions. How do you deal with that as a commission to ensure that only the people who turn up in the polling stations are able to vote, and only the ballots that have been cast will be able to be counted?
Thank you very much. The allegations of rigging are now baseless. We want to assure Kenyans that we have put in place mechanisms. For example, it's only the KIMS kit that will be used to identify a voter, and it's only the registered voters who will be voting on that particular day. And then there will be agents who are trained now. There are observers in that polling station. There is also media, so therefore there is no room for manipulation in any way in those polling stations. So we want to assure Kenyans that there will be any rigging in polling stations across the country.
Thank you very much, Joyce Kwam, the manager of voter education. And Freddie, there was a news conference yesterday by the chairman of the Independent Electoral Boundaries Commission, IEBC, that is Wafula Chebukati, when he met international and local observers, basically taking them through the preparations for the August general election. And one of the things that he was saying yesterday is that 7 days to the general election, that is on Tuesday, IEBC will have taken over all the polling stations, all the schools that will be used as polling stations. They will be taken over by IEBC for preparations for the August general election, just to ensure that all is in place, to ensure that by the time people turn up at the ballot on Tuesday of 8th of August, everything will be on set. And in terms of taking charge of, or taking care of accountability in terms of the number of people who turn up to vote, the number of ballot papers that will be issued. The presiding officers will be making periodic updates, 3 hours, every 3 hours, to the constituency returning officers on the number of people who have turned up, on the number of ballot papers that have been issued, just to make sure that questions that have been raised previously on the question of accountability are taken care of. So those are some of the issues that Freddie will be expecting the chairman to reiterate on, deal with, and of course the question of the announcement of the presidential election results. Remember, the Court of Appeal ruled on the finality of the results that are declared at the constituency level and the finality of the results that are announced in the 40,883 polling stations. So basically, the IEBC chairman will also be demonstrating what exactly will be happening here at the National Tallying Center insofar as receiving results from the 290 constituencies, and eventually how the winner of the presidential race will be declared after ascertaining that that particular candidate has met the threshold, the constitutional threshold of attaining 50% plus 1 of the total registered of the total number of votes that will be cast, and also 25% of the votes that will be cast in at least 24 counties. So until that time, Freddie, let's wait for the chairman to come and tell us basically what he has to tell the nation insofar as the preparations for the August general election are concerned.
Thank you, Francis Gashuri, there live from the Bomas of Kenya, the National Tallying Center of the IEBC, with an update on what the IEBC is doing today. A status preparedness address set to be carried out by Wafula Chebukati, that's the chairperson of the IEBC. Francis was speaking there to the manager of voter preparedness on issues of voter education. And Nakia, your statement has been vindicated. Of course, yes, the IEBC is carrying out its duty, and in as far as educating the voters on what is expected of them come election day. Nakia,
yes.
Any comments on that?
My comment, ask the question again, please.
It's not, I'm saying because you insisted that yes, it is the duty of the IEBC, not the candidates, to educate the voters, and we can actually see that the IEBC is already doing it today at the Bomas of Kenya. They are said to have a mock simulation, rather, of the voting process, and that is what you were saying earlier, that yes, it is up to the IEBC, not to the candidates.
It is absolutely up to the, again, I will say that it is the responsibility of both. It's a shared responsibility. So certainly I think the weight of the responsibility for educating voters certainly lies with IEBC. While candidates have a responsibility of kind of ensuring that people are safe while they go to vote, and making sure that, you know, kind of hate speech isn't happening in the meantime to kind of, you know, push possible violence during the August the 8th election cycle. So yes, absolutely, IEBC is absolutely responsible for educating voters how to vote, where to vote, what they should expect at the voting station. And I think today is a really good example of the work that the IEBC is absolutely trying to do. Now we'll see what happens on August the 8th if all of the work that they've been doing over the last couple of months really is worth its weight in salt. I think that we'll see some major changes from the IEBC. I think that they're working incredibly hard to ensure that voters are educated, and that, you know, machines are in place and ballot papers, although they're being printed late. I'm nervous about that, but I think that there are, you know, steps being put in place that are incredibly helpful for the citizens and moving democracy forward. I do want to make a comment, just kind of jumping back again.
Yes.
Yeah, to the tactics, and something that Okori mentioned. She mentioned a couple of candidates that are really independent candidates and that are out there doing really, really well. And this is something that I spoke about and something that I wrote about. And that is when you had to declare a party at the very beginning, and that caused a lot of confusion. We saw it at the primaries. But the real benefit is that some people were able to vie as independent candidates, which I think is a great thing, because grassroots, I think, is really a power position, especially if you're a grassroots candidate and you win, or an independent candidate and you win. Or if you start your own party outside of the fray and you win, it really does put you in a power position. There's one particular candidate that I happen to be incredibly impressed by, both his ground game, as well as his social media game, and that happens to be Boniface Mwangi. I am incredibly impressed with this guy. He really reminds me, and not to put all of this weight on him, but he really does remind me of Barack Obama in 2008. Barack Obama made sure that he touched everyone in every way. He had a strong social media game. He went out and made sure that he spoke to everyone. He spoke to people where they were, and he wasn't too good. And he was up against Hillary Clinton, and Hillary Clinton was a heavyweight. She had tons and tons of money coming from all kinds of political PACs, but she still did a great, Barack Obama still did a great job in defeating Hillary Clinton 3-1 almost during the primaries. And I think, you know, again, I hate to put the amount of responsibility that Barack Obama had on Boniface Mwangi, but I can't help but to say how out of all of the candidates that I've seen thus far, I'm really, really impressed with this guy.
It does start somewhere, and probably that's what we expect to see 10 days to the elections, tactics changing, candidates using different tactics. Thank you so much, Nakia J. White.
Thank you.
Even as we let you leave the studio now, and we welcome Joy Mdivo. Karibu sana. And as far as the tactics are concerned, 10 days to the elections, this political rallies, dancing to the same songs that we've had over and over. Children are already singing these songs and dancing to the same tunes. Surely politicians need to change.
I know they do, because when you talk to youngsters, they don't get it. Like my daughter, she's not yet old enough to be a voter, but she's old enough to be politically aware. And one thing she finds very, very annoying is when they paste all these posters in my environment and make it so ugly, and then pass by with these loudspeakers. That's exactly why I will not vote for them, and that's how she talks now. So that shows you that there's some of these tactics that used to be considered effective in times gone by that are right now actually an irritant and might have the opposite effect. So I actually agree with the commentators who've gone before me that it's time to start looking at door-to-door campaigns. It's time to look at town hall meetings. Even the debates that we've been organizing, I think are getting to a place where they're overrated. We should get to a place where you have a town hall meeting where you sit and the people ask you a question and you answer them directly rather than watching you on TV. Time for the politicians to actually work for, because it is a job interview. Unfortunately, you have got hundreds of thousands of interviewers. So it's time to work smart, not hard.
Yes, and Joy, of course, it's only 10 days to election day. Do you think there's time for these candidates to change tactic or at least adjust instead of going around the country making the same whistle-stop tours, crisscrossing, dancing at political rallies?
Oh, this one is done. This one, I don't think we are changing tactics this late in the day. For this one, it's a wrap. Maybe if you're a little guy running your own campaign, you have the flexibility. But for the big guys, this thing has been organized. They have teams in place. They have money in place. They are not doing their own thinking at this point. They're being told today we're going here, today we're going here. You turn up and do the jig.
So no chance of changing?
Not for the big guys. Not for the big guys. No. But if you're looking at an MCA race or maybe even an MP race, you may have some flexibility this late in the day. But for the big campaigns, it's too late. The train left the station.
For governors' races, surely the tactics must be different, yeah?
And you know, that's the unfortunate thing. You would think that people will be more interested in who's going to become their governor, because right now with devolution, your governor actually directly affects your quality of life. But you've been having so little attention on what is going on with the governor's campaigns that I think they're the ones who are getting away without being thoroughly scrutinized for the job. Because under the new dispensation, the president had his powers very greatly curtailed, and with parliament having a greater role in oversight of the executive, such that the governors right now are the ones who are running away with this thing without as much oversight as they ought to have. So yes, for some of those smaller, for lack of a better word, smaller races, which are not unimportant, they could change tax, and maybe it could be a game changer.
Onchari, do you agree that yes, it's time probably to change tactics, but probably for the big candidates, that time has gone?
Now, I think I like the kind of futuristic thinking my colleagues have, but I don't think we're yet there. Now, it is possible that going forward, we're likely to see, you know, a new way of politicking in Kenya, but it's going to take time. There's a reason why guys who came into the big parties were not able to make it, because, you know, we said, you're either working with us or you're against us. So if you're in Jubilee, you're likely to win in places where Jubilee is perceived to be a strong, political force. If you from a place that is considered another stronghold, you're likely to win. So the independent candidates, of course, compelled to recognize, are going to have it very, very rough. Very few of them will make it. Last time you saw the president came to Nairobi and made it very clear. The candidate of choice is Sonko and not any independent candidate. So guys listened to him, and that is the guy who's likely to get nearly 100% of the Jubilee votes. Same thing to Raila. He went to places where NASA is very strong and made it's going to be 6-piece. So independent candidates, of course, welcome. They are very much allowed to contest, but it's going to be very, very tough.
Some of these independent candidates with their unique tactics will actually go through.
I don't think so. It's going to be very tough. Someone has talked about Boniface Mwangi. I know he's working very hard, but Stare is likely to go to most likely Zawa. That's how it is. That is the kind of political tradition we have, and it's not going to change overnight. It's going to take time. Now, in terms of adopting new, of course, behaviors as we approach the election day, once again, it's all about the closeness of the contest. Each politician is thinking, okay, maybe the last day I can make a couple of rounds here and there and get some swing votes, which does not count for much because of our tribal mindset in voting, very, very few guys remain undecided as we approach the final days. So it doesn't make much of a difference. In fact, most guys are decided. When you listen to some opinion polls talking about maybe 10% of guys undecided in Western or Nyanza, it's neither here nor there. Kenyans make their minds much, much earlier.
Wow.
Fred,
as far as the Nairobi races are concerned, we have an InfoTrack poll being released today, and we'll get to know whether or not Ontario Yeyo's assessment is correct. We'll be giving you that as well. Joy, you want to say something?
Yes, I was listening to Ontario, and there's something that I wonder if he was in Kenya when we were doing the primaries. One thing that was very categorically clear is that Kenyans are no longer voting in terms of the preferred candidate by the party honchos. And that is why we have that many independent candidates, because some parties indicated that this is a preferred candidate, went on to even give certificates to candidates who are not the people's popular choice, and the people said, fine, you keep your candidate, ours is running independent, and we are the ones with the vote. So to imagine that simply the word of Uhuru Kenyatta or the Raila Odinga is enough to shepherd voters in one direction is actually a fallacy, which is something we saw barely 2 months ago. It's one of those things Kenyans have gotten to a place where they understand that if you vote for somebody, he is going to work for you. And if somebody has really proved that they cannot work for you, then why would you vote for them? Yes. I do understand that having a party lends you a certain wind beneath your wings. But to say that many independent candidates won't make it, I think he's underestimating them.
Yes. Sheforo Kore, of course, some of these unique tactics, these fresh tactics that Onchari is so readily dismissing.
As futuristic.
As futuristic. Are forced upon candidates because of lack of resources. Some of them do not enjoy the support that comes with the big political parties. The independent candidates, they do not have the funding, so they have no choice but to be creative. Don't you think?
I agree, and there's things I would just love to correct before I even answer your question. There is such an old narrative that is so common amongst us in believing that anything that is new in regards to how we run our politics or how our politics is run or even thought about and discussed has to be among the old ways or the old taxes that have been there before. So it is such a big deception to say that a place like Starehe is bound to go to Jaguar just because you need to not just make it as simple as that. There is the idea that I said before of a new voter out there, and like it's been mentioned, during the party primaries we saw big people collapse, for lack of a better word, because people realized that it's time we stood up and chose the people who are choosing us. And that is important. And these people have to be the people we support, the people we encourage, the people we campaign with, the people we understand how they made their wealth, how they have come to where they are now. So the idea of just thinking and saying so simplistically like, oh, the people are decided, it is a lie. It is a big lie, because one thing is, when you talk about people have decided, then it completely robs the whole new narrative that is out there on the ground that has been pushing and encouraging young people who are not just vying as independents, but even in the small parties who believe that this country needs a new crop of leaders. Because these people have been funded by the people, their campaign is run by the people, their agendas, their manifestos, their banners banners, their posters, their flyers, every single thing they have has been done by the people. We cannot belittle that and assume that this is not something to be talked about or something to be applauded, because it means people are changing their mindsets and people are starting to see that politics is not for the politicians. Until the day we actually participate as the people who are voting and create the servants we want, we will forever be talking about Jubilee and NASA.
Wow.
But the young people creating options so that we are not stuck in the Jubilee and NASA, you know, where I feel like, oh God, okay, it's another NASA candidate or it's another Jubilee candidate.
And probably Jubilee and NASA should learn from these new candidates in, as far as their tactics and their style of campaigning is concerned.
They should, but they won't, because there's also the disconnect and the rift between leadership of we are the old dogs, we are the gatekeepers of politics.
Okay,
but then they look at you as, but you're young people, what do you even know? You just want to come here and speak your English, which is sad, because you are the voters, right? So my thing is, changing tactics is key. It is working now. Like the candidates I mentioned, Samantha Miner's entire campaign has been funded by the people.
Yes.
Because she literally cannot even afford to print her own t-shirts. And people came out and said, you're a young woman, we see what you're trying to do, we believe in it. It is the time for us as voters to be part and parcel of campaigns. Because we cannot also keep talking about Chapter 6 is not working, yet we are the ones who are voting in people who have gone around Chapter 6. If you want to hold a leader accountable, create them.
Onchari doesn't look convinced, but before we come back to Onchari, in a short while we'll be linking up with Sam Gituku as well, all the way in Dubai. I do understand we have a proper signal now. Or even as we continue trying to sort out that signal, we do understand there's also that simulation of the voting process happening at Bomas of Kenya. Once we are ready with that signal, we'll be taking it as well. Oh, okay. Let's continue in the meantime with the discussion. Onchari, you do not look convinced at all. But don't you think, Onchari, that fine, however difficult it could be for this older politicians who have this known way of doing politics, however hard it is for them to change, at least for the last 10 days, something needs to change. That you cannot just go on with the same public rallies, dancing over and over again. That they need to do something different, at least in the last 10 days.
Well, once again, I want to correct something here. I said the job that is being done by independent candidates is fabulous, it's good. And you see now that is the kind of groundwork we need for the future Kenya. And once again, I want to say it is actually futuristic. At some point, I'm sure we will get there. And it has to start somewhere. I'm sure
but not this time around.
We're not yet there. There's a reason why, if you go to a place like Luo Nyanza, you cannot find even a single strong Jubilee candidate. There is a reason why if you go to a place like Nyeri, Kirinyaga, Kiambu, you cannot find a solid, strong NASA candidate who can win an election. There's a reason why things are like that. It's not by coincidence that Raila gets 90% of votes in Kisumu and Uhuru gets 90% votes in Nyeri. That is how Kenya is. So we have a very long way to go, and the kind of futuristic ideas I'm getting around, that's okay, because you know it captures the dream we have as a country.
And now you're describing it as a dream?
It is. It's what it is. And now, if there's some independent candidates who are likely to make it, they'll make it from those strongholds, as of course as a rebellion against some kind of arm twisting by the big boys. But they're going to make it from those particular places, and they have to pledge allegiance to the party leaders. Okay, let's talk about the guys from those places who perceived to be their leaders. Once again, there is the element of support for, let's say, the president or former Prime Minister Raila Odinga. So these guys have to come out and say, once I'm elected, I'd like to get support from guys who within my party. So the independent candidates can only make it if they come out and pledge allegiance, bow down to either the president or Raila. Now, let's go back to the issue of showing up for debates and all that. Now, debates, a tradition which was of course began way back in 1960 in the United States, and the US is one of the oldest, I think it's the oldest democracy we have now. It is very solid. Debates count for something in the US. In Kenya they don't count for much.
So you're saying there's no possibility of us adopting any other system of campaigning even in the last 10 days. Okay, let's hold it there. Let's link up with Sam Gituku in Dubai. We were interrupted earlier on, Sam. when you're telling us about the preparations and when we expect the presidential ballot papers to be sent to Kenya. You said the first batch will be sent as early as tomorrow. When do we expect all the presidential ballot papers to arrive in Kenya? And who else is there in Dubai? Which other stakeholder is there? Who representing who?
Thing, Fred, is that tomorrow, that is Saturday, the Al Ghurair firm is expected to transport the first batch of ballot papers to the airport so that they can be prepared. They are calling it the cooling period, so that they can be prepared and also cleared by the customs department at the airport, so that come Monday morning or come Monday they will be in a position to ferry them to Nairobi. And of course, it will take about 5 hours to land at the Jomo Kenyatta International Airport. And after that, like we have seen with other ballot papers, they will be moved to the IEBC warehouse in the industrial area. So that will be the first plane, and then on Sunday it is expected that the other plane for the presidential ballot papers will then again be ferried to the airport, so that the same procedure can be taken. And so the last batch of the presidential ballot papers, and actually the last ballot papers for this general election, will be delivered in Nairobi on Tuesday if everything goes to schedule. But in as far as other matters are concerned, yes, the IEBC has been here. We have two commissioners, even as Wafula Chebukati waits to go to Bomas of Kenya, as Gashuri indicated. There are two commissioners, that is Roslyn Akombe and also Ambassador Paul Kurgat, who is also a commissioner of the IEBC. They are here, of course, leading a delegation of various stakeholders, among them political parties, representatives, the presidential candidates, agents, including one from the National Super Alliance, another one from Dr. Ekuru, of course, campaign team. And yesterday, of course, we had that moment going through the factory and seeing how the procedure is being undertaken. And as the information was relayed yesterday that as of about 4 o'clock Dubai time, 95% of the ballot papers for the presidential election had already been printed, and also they were at different stages of finalization. So there has been concerns from some of them. For instance, the National Super Alliance representative, that is Godfrey Otsotsi, who is also the Secretary General for the Amani National Congress, was saying that he would have wished to be supplied with seals that have been used to seal the ballot papers, because they are arranged in stacks, large stacks, which they are also called the pallets. So he was saying that there should have been some seals put on those ballot papers so that they can be shared with the agents of the different campaign teams, so that once they land at the Jomo Kenyatta International Airport, then they are transported to the constituencies. Then they can speak to their agents to confirm that the seals have not been broken at any one stage. But the IBC, of course, responded to that. The two commissioners from the IBC, Roslyn Akombe and Paul Kurgat, indicating that as of this time round, that was not a consideration, because what they've seen is that the kind of package, the packaging that has been done, it also includes the serial numbers of all the ballot papers that have been packaged in that large stack from the picture that we had yesterday. So they are saying that so far that is security that is satisfactory, but they are saying in future processes then that can be incorporated to ensure that there is no breach of security. But then again, there has also been a concern from the Third Way Alliance. Dr. Ekuru, of course, has just issued a statement from Nairobi indicating that he is sort of not satisfied, because he was expecting that he will come to monitor the process of this printing of ballot papers from the word go to the end. But you understand that IBC has been time constrained. The ruling, the favorable ruling from the Court of Appeal came just on the 20th of this month, that is sometimes last week. So Al Ghurair and IEBC have had 7 days to do this printing, but the presidential agents only came to Dubai the day yesterday morning. Some of them had arrived the day before, so they have come to oversee a process that is nearing completion. So Dr. Ekuru feels that he has not gotten that opportunity to monitor the process throughout, but the commissioners have been trying to calm that and telling them that what they have seen is what has happened in the previous printing that has happened. So it's a sort of the different political players getting to express themselves, indicating what they feel about the entire process. But largely, what you have seen is an acceptance that the security features that have been laid in the ballot papers are satisfactory, especially listening to the National Super Alliance representative Godfrey Otsotsi yesterday. When he spoke to him, he was saying that he is satisfied, but only wished that he could get an opportunity to have seals included in those ballot papers for the sake of confirmation that they are the actual dispatches from Dubai going all the way to the constituency spread.
Wow, thank you, Sam Gituku, live through Skype, via Skype, all the way in Dubai, with an update on the printing of presidential ballot papers and when we expect them to be delivered to Kenya. Let's now move to the Bomas of Kenya, where we told you earlier that we do expect a simulation of the voting process, as well as an address by the chairperson of the IEBC, Wafula Chebukati, on the status of preparedness for the elections. Let's listen in.
Very important process and activity in our country. Both Kenyans as voters, the observers, and the rest of the stakeholders, you are really important to us at this moment. And I want to say that anything that is being done as for now, it is for the sake of all the stakeholders to understand our intention, what we are doing, how we are doing it, and that we are trying to ensure that this country will be comfortable with our mandate that we have actually been given by the Kenyan Constitution. In voter education, I want to say that I am glad that the voter education is on. Even whatever was going here is actually part of the voter education. And I would urge each one of us, whatever is not clear with you, you'd rather ask the accredited people who know what we are doing. Ask the staff to explain to you what is not clear with you, other than trying to ask the wrong people, and definitely will give you the wrong answers. So I urge Kenyans, I urge the stakeholders, find any information from the commission itself, and you'll definitely get the right answer, the right time that you need that clarification. And with that, I want to invite our chairman, Chebukati, to come and give his remarks. Thank you.
Your Excellencies, ambassadors who are here with us, Your Excellency, the UN Director, Madam Seude, various observer groups, civil society, staff of IBC present. Ladies and gentlemen, good morning. Allow me to express my gratitude to the organizers of this function, and especially the media fraternity, for being part of the arrangement of today's meeting. And I wish to acknowledge all the actors who made this day to be what it is today. We are here 10 days to election, and as a commission, we've done our very best to make sure that Kenyans get a free, fair, and credible election come the 8th of August this year. I'm indeed pleased and honored to be here today to give you an update on the IBC preparedness for the upcoming elections. As you are aware, preparations are ongoing, and I'm confident that the 8th August election will come and we shall deliver on our mandate. I also wish to inform you today that the Commission, cognizant of both operational and technological risks it may face during the upcoming general election. Since I came in office in January with my commissioners, we have got various visitations from all stakeholders, and most of you in this room have indeed engaged with us. And one of the major concerns you have is questions ranging from issues of preparations of elections to risk management, and especially whether elections will be rigged. That is the question that you ask. And I thought today I must share with you and the whole country 12 issues which I consider very important, which are concerns I've picked from you, from the social media, from the media in general, from the public, as to what constitutes the risks involved in elections in our country, and what measures IBC has taken to ensure that come the 8th of August this year, we shall have a free, fair, credible and peaceful election. Peaceful before, during and after the elections. So fellow Kenyans, allow me to highlight the risks and explain to you why this will not occur in the 2017 elections. Risk number one, whether dead voters will vote. This is a question that has been asked many times. I want to assure the country that the issue of dead voters coming to vote is not there at all. This is because we have a KIMS technology that will identify voters biometrically. The IPC has put in place a foolproof system that will not only identify voters biometrically, but will also ensure that the ones who are passed on will not turn up on the August 8th election. The KIMS technology will identify and transmit election results, and the same technology will authenticate voters, check voter turnout, transmit results, and stem any election fraud. The KIMS is of course a more efficient, improved system than the version used in the 2013 elections. The system will identify voters biometrically, alphanumerically, and through the reading of the MRZ code that's the voters' biodata. This code is found in one's identity card. Although biometric identification will be the first option, but if biometric identification fails, then the use of an alphanumeric system would be applied. That's if the voter is not identified biometrically. Now, this is only in cases if you can't be identified biometrically, or in case where the name is missing in the register. We have put in measures. That is supplementary system of voting, which is alphanumeric, and we are aware from the audit carried out by KPMG that this number of people who don't have biometrics are known. We have 5,300 people whose biometrics are not known, and those are the people we expect to come and be identified through complementary system. Another issue that is important is that the risk of stuffing of ballot papers is an issue that I've been asked about. Will there be stuffing of ballot papers, and how do we manage that risk? In case of fraud or attempts by voters to vote twice, the device of course will be able to alert us, thus barring the said person from voting twice. So if you can't vote twice, then you'll not have a chance to cast your vote, to vote more than once, which means you can only be entitled to the 6 ballot papers for the 6 respective positions. Individuals will not be able to vote in areas where they did not register as voters. The device will be in operation with a maximum of 24 hours battery. That is, the device itself has a battery power of 12 hours, and we have power backup lasting 12 hours. So issues of power reduction or malfunction will not be there. The device will bar any malpractice at the voting station, for it will be transmitting voter turnout from each polling station to our central database every 3 hours, thus showing the number of voters who have turned up. Once identified, the device will also show the period taken, capture the state of the election, the time of voting, polling center code, polling center label, number of registered voters in a polling station, and the number of authenticated voters. IBC will therefore be able to monitor the number of authenticated voters and tally their votes cast. The passwords to access the device would only be issued to the authorized officers when the electoral materials are dispersed. So those are the measures in place insofar as that is concerned. I want to talk about identification of voters and crossing out the register at the polling station. The Commission has approved a procedure which includes the following. That's procedure on verification. The default method of voter identification is biometrics. So step number one, the voter will place their finger on the KIMS fingerprint scanner. Number two, the KIMS will then identify the voter by retrieving the image and the details. Once identified, the clerks will call out the name of the voter loudly. The voter proceeds to be issued with ballots. What happens in the event the voter cannot be identified using biometrics? In the event the voter's details are not retrieved using biometrics in the first instance, the clerk will allow the voter to make 3 attempts, a maximum of 3 attempts. If the details are not retrieved in the third attempt, the clerk will proceed to undertake an alphanumeric search using the ID of the voter, the name, date of birth, or by scanning the barcode on the identification document. That's an ID or passport. Where the voter may be identified using the biometric after the alphanumeric search, in which case the clerk should now revert to the default procedure. That is, once identified, the machine will demand that you put your finger again for purpose of biometric because you have been identified. And in the event that you cannot be identified biometrically again, then you'll be allowed to proceed to vote using the third step. That is, a form will be filled, signed by the agent for all the parties present, plus the presiding officer, plus the applicant, and that's the only time you'll now be allowed to vote using the complementary system. So all the steps are there. This will be published, and Kenyans will have a chance to prepare and be educated on how to proceed. A third risk which I want to talk about is collusion that may occur, or what we have been told that can occur between political parties and ballot paper printers. We have been told that there's possibility of printing extra ballot papers. As we speak, our team is in Dubai, accompanied by civil society, the media, representatives of presidential candidates, including NASA, and they have shared a packaging list of the 290 pallets of presidential ballot papers which will be transported from Dubai to Nairobi. That is, they have shared the packing list which shows the 290 pallets and will be dispatched here, and they'll be free also to view the same pallets when they do arrive in Nairobi. On arrival, a thorough monitoring unit and audit of all the ballot papers or ballots shall be conducted. We shall then conduct noting of ballot serial numbers at the national warehouse, at the constituency and polling stations, and reconcile them after voting. Political parties are required to post party agents in all the polling stations. As you are aware, there are rumors going around the social media that ballots can be forged. Today I want to assure you that the ballot papers which we have printed for this election are very advanced in features, and that will make it impossible to duplicate, and they are not prone to any form of ballot stuffing in view of the measures which I have outlined above. The other risk I want to talk about, which we have been told and have been told many times, is the risk of erroneous tabulation of results. In order to ensure transparency, and this is a solution which we have, in order to ensure transparency in the manner in which election results are managed, the IBC has developed the Election Results Management Framework, which clarifies the procedure of results management at each step. and provides comprehensive guide with respect to the process of managing results. The guidelines were published today in the newspapers. I saw page 17 of the Daily Nation, and we shall follow these guidelines to the letter for effective management of the results. The following measures have been put in place, and I just want to summarize because they have already been published. At the polling station, after tallying and announcing of the results at the polling station, the presiding officer in the presence of party agents shall key in the KIMS tablet the results captured in Form 34A, scan Form 34A using the KIMS tablet, confirm that the typed results and the scanned results are accurate and same, electronically transmit the results to the constituency tallying center and the national tallying center. Form 34A, which are results from polling stations, shall be made available on an online portal. And that will also mean it will be made available to the public. The media will have a link, and any Kenyan can access those results. The results, the returning officer at the constituency tallying center will receive all the Form 34As. He will collect the results from Form 34A and prepare Form 34B, announce the results of the presidential election in that constituency. And then he scans Form 34B and sends it to the National Tallying Center, which will be here at Bomas. So we have results at polling station which are final. We shall have results at constituency from the constituency tallying center, which are also final. And so when the results reach here at the National Tallying Center, we shall be receiving 290 Form 34Bs from the 290 constituencies for the presidential candidates. So we shall already be receiving final results here at the Bomas. So in accordance with the laws which we have, I mean the Court of Appeal decision, the Commission has set in process the following processes. One, the scanned Form 34Bs from the constituency returning officer shall be received by our officers here. We have designated 2 officers to receive those forms. The forms shall be authenticated by the said officers in the presence of the chief agents of all the candidates. For purposes of authentication, the chief agents of the candidates for presidential candidates will be here at Bomas. Once authenticated, the forms will be serialized, the received form, and hand over the same to a collation team, and we shall have a team of 6 desks here for purposes of receiving results from the 47 counties. So the collation team will generate Form 34C, which is the final form for purposes of presidential results, and hand over the same to the validation team. The validation team verifies the Form 34C to ensure it's complete, accurate as far as the results from the 290 constituencies are concerned. And once verified, the Form 34C will be handed over to the chairman, who will use the same to declare the final results of presidential elections. We shall deploy a results management team to ensure correct tabulation of results. We shall also ensure concurrence with party agents to any results which are issued at all levels of the results announcements. And the whole idea is to have transparency and ensure that all parties involved will be satisfied with the results before transmission. One issue I want to talk about is the failure of integrated management system. What happens if the system fails? It is a system, first of all, is off-grid, is not connected at the polling station, so you can never have a situation where massive failure occurs. But if there's a failure, it will be in isolated cases. The Kenya Integrated Management System acquired will work at an optimum capacity as comprehensive training has been done to all our staff to avoid any issue of technology failure. KIMS devices were acquired having a dual SIM capacity, hence the ability to minimize downtimes occasioned by weak internet connectivity by automatically picking the strongest network available in a given location while transmitting results. The Commission has acquired a primary and secondary data center to mitigate the risk of systematic failures triggered by technological hitches while relaying results to the National Tallying Center. That is primary server, if it fails, secondary server kicks in on real time. And so we can never have a situation where systems stop. The Commission has invested a lot in redundancy in terms of back-end data processing. And the Commission has conducted testing and simulation is going on, but the major exercise will be done involving all stakeholders, the media, the civil society, on the 31st of July this year. That's when we shall do a major testing, simulation test of the system for purposes of results transmission. What happens in result transmission if there's failure due to network? And we have been told there are rumors that the internet may disappear on that day. Of course, those are unfounded rumors. But this is a serious risk which we cannot ignore as a Commission. The Commission, together with the Communication Authority of Kenya and telecom companies, must work together and ensure that results transmission on election day happens without failure. In the previous occasion, we used one service provider, but this time the Commission has brought on board 3 service providers, the major service providers in the country, to ensure that there's a seamless transmission of results. And in areas where there's no internet or weak internet, the Commission has made provision for satellite transmission. We, of course, cognizant of eventualities, and we have also provided for satellite backup in all the 290 constituencies, tallying centers, and the 47 county tallying centers. So all those measures have been taken. You are all aware of the Court of Appeal judgment that has made changes in our system of results management. And in that regard, allow me to highlight a few areas that were affected, which I've already mentioned. One, that the Court of Appeal, and we agree with it, that the polling station is the true locus for the free exercise of the voters' will, and the results at the polling stations are final. So that these results at each polling station are counted, tabulated, and the outcome of that tabulation is announced without delay by the presiding officer. The electronic transmission of election results in a prescribed form is a critical way of safeguarding the accuracy of that outcome. And the Court of Appeal also emphasized that the aspect that is not mandatory for returning officers to come from the various constituencies, 290 constituencies, trooping to Nairobi, to the National Tallying Center to hand over hard copies of those results. And that's why we are saying the scanned results will come, and we shall deal with those scanned results after verifying. Verifying team will of course have the opportunity to ensure that these results have been sent from those particular returning officers, even if it means calling the returning officers, ensuring that the results are from those particular returning officers before the verification and announcement is made. So the role of the National Tallying Center is of course to verify that the winning candidate in the presidential election has obtained 50% plus 1, and that the candidate has obtained at least 25% of the votes in at least the 24 counties. The results received from the returning officer cannot be changed or varied by the Commission at the National Tallying Center. And the same principle also applies to the returning officer at the constituency. He cannot change the results received from the presiding officer at the polling station. So those measures are there, and as a result of which the Commission has put them in place. And as I mentioned earlier, the Form 34S, that is the form from the presiding officer at the polling station, will be filled and announced. Then the Form 34B will be filled at the constituency and announced, and then the National Tallying Center will proceed to complete the results and fill Form 34C and declare the winner. And the results, of course, will be accessed by all Kenyans before they reach here. The media will have them, the members of the public will have them, the political parties will have the results. So the role of the chairman is to announce the final results. But I've seen from the social media and many Kenyans saying we want the chairman to announce the results from the constituents as they come. They will already have been announced anyway, but if Kenyans say so, then we shall also announce them, but we shall merely be repeating what the media said and what the other actors already know. But that is the system in place, and that is just to ensure that there is transparency and that nothing is changed in that seamless process. I want to address the issue of which has come to my desk also, hacking of IBC servers. There are many people who say, are you ready? There are people who can hack your system. As a commission, I'm alive to possibilities of cyber attacks on the IBC systems. We have put in place cyber security measures to safeguard the systems from hacking. We have engaged cyber security experts to ensure that we protect our systems from hacking by putting in place a parallel backup system, also known as hot site. Any person found interfering with the systems will be dealt with by the full force of the law. Another issue that's crucial is security and order at polling stations. If there's disorder at polling stations, of course it can have an impact on the type of outcome expected. If people are disturbed, voters are harassed, of course we shall not have a proper outcome of what's expected to be a free and fair election. In collaboration with other agencies, including the National Police Service, Office of the Director of Public Prosecution, NCIC, IPOA, Office of the Registrar of Political Parties, and other agencies, the Commission is working to ensure that there is security and peace before, during, and after polling. We are involved in the training of police officers and special police officers who will be deployed during the general election. The training covers election security and election laws in general and election offences in particular. And in that regard, the Commission shall deploy at least 2 security officers per polling station across the country. The role of these officers will be to secure election materials as well as maintaining order at the polling station. While working at the polling station, these officers will be under the leadership of the presiding officers. So it's not the police taking charge of polling stations, it is IBC and his team taking charge of the process, and the officers are under the command of the presiding officers at the polling stations, and respectively at the tallying centers they are under the returning officers respectively. Without the staff, of course we cannot do this, And when you have staff, the issue of transparency and accountability of staff is crucial. On election day, IBC will be deploying 360,000 members of staff, ranging from presiding officers, clerks, that's at the level of the polling station, to man our 40,883 polling stations. We shall also have our 290 returning officers at constituencies and their deputies, 47 county returning officers and their deputies, and other staff ranging from ICT to logistics staff and a whole range of them. Now, why do I talk about staff? Because they are crucial in the management of elections, and we have, as a commission, trained our staff starting 2 months ago on how to manage technology, how to manage matters election in all areas. Our staff will be transparent. They will explain whatever processes are being done in relaying of results. We shall have live screens here at Bomas and in all the tallying centers countrywide, where results will be displayed. And therefore, by the time Bomas gets the results, Kenyans will already be knowing most of the results by that time. We have had meetings. I've spoken to our staff and reminded them that they have signed a code of conduct and they must live by that code of conduct. They have been trained and they know the consequences, that if they breach the code of conduct and the electoral offences, they'll be prosecuted like any other Kenyan. And this time round, the Electoral Offences Act has very strict fines. In fact, I think the minimum fine is 1 million shillings and 1 year imprisonment. As a commission, we shall not protect a staff who make Kenyans not have a free, fair and credible elections. And our staff are very cognizant of that fact. Spoiled votes. What happens in that area? As a commission, we want to ensure that we have as few spoiled votes as possible. And that's why Commissioner Margaret mentioned voter education, which is ongoing. It has been launched countrywide. We have 2 voter educators in our 1,450 county assembly wards. So each of them we have 2 voter educators who have been recruited, trained, and deployed. We have a further 290 and 47 constituency and county voter education coordinators who have been deployed to ensure quality of voter education delivery. The Commission has deployed, produced and distributed information and education communication materials all over the country. The Commission staff are very much involved in this, and most of them have been on TV stations, radio and public gatherings disseminating information related to voter education. All these activities are to ensure that voters are familiar with the voting process. And there's also a program targeting the youth insofar as voter education is concerned. So all these processes have been put in place to ensure that the country gets a free, fair election come the 8th of August this year. And there is no room for rigging the upcoming general elections slated on the 8th of August. On 20th of January this year, when I took oath of office, I made a commitment to you Kenyans that I'm equal to the task. My commission and staff under my leadership have worked every single day to ensure that we deliver a free, fair and credible election. You can trust that IBC will do our part, and we have done our part to ensure that Kenyans get what they deserve. And I urge all of you to also do your part, for each of us have a role to play. To the politicians campaigning, Please campaign peacefully. You are bound by the Code of Conduct. As a commission, we have our Code of Conduct Enforcement Committee, which is in place, and we shall not hesitate to crack the whip on those who cause violence, who want to destroy posters of their opponents and create insecurity in the country. To the media, both local and international, and also social media, please have responsible reporting and dissemination of information to the people of Kenya. To the local and the national observers and civil society, the church, we have engaged with you, and we appreciate your initiatives in taking concern and also sharing information, which IBC and my commission really appreciates. And to Kenyans, I urge you to turn up in large numbers to exercise your right to vote. And in the words of Louis Amar, the American author, I quote, "To make democracy work, we must be a nation of participants, not simply observers." And after you have voted, I urge you, Kenyans, to maintain peace. Thank you very much. God bless you. And let's have a peaceful general election come the 8th of August this year. Sunday.